Welcome to In Real Time, where we as Heights Church are inviting you in for real conversations about leading people, organizations, and change in the new normal. We're hoping that our real discussions about our church's journey will help you as you reimagine and rebuild yours.
To In Real Time. In the meantime, my name is Pastor Justin, and if you like our In Real Time podcast, do us a favor, hit like, subscribe, and the bell notification. If you're watching us on this episode, you got to check out this really amazing sign that I guarantee our communications director is freaking out when she sees this, because it is awesome. It's yellow, and it's got blue tape on it. But my name is Justin. I'm one of the pastors around here, filling in for Pastor Craig, but I'm joined by a couple of my co-hosts who are laughing at this amazing sign.
Yeah, she wouldn't like it.
I can tell you that right now. No doubt, right?
We might be in trouble later.
We just did it anyway. That's what happens in the meantime.
It does.
It's true. Who are you?
I'm Jennifer Alessio, and I serve as the children's pastor here at Heights Church. And who are you?
I forget.
My name is Tim. I'm a teaching pastor here. I also oversee our online campus, men's ministry, and some other ministries. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Good
well,
times.
hey, we are not only going to have some fun today, whenever you're watching this episode with us, but here's what we're going to be talking about. We're going to take a play on words. What would Jesus do, right? Mm-hmm. We're going to tweak it. What would Craig do? What would Craig, our senior pastor, do when he's away? And he's actually out on sabbatical right now.
Yep.
He's getting a time of refreshing, at least while this episode's being videoed. He's getting a time of refreshing, recharging, going and being with Jesus. But really the question is, how do you equip your team to lead when you're away?
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about.
Yep.
Is how did he help us get to here?
Right.
So that he can sleep at night without thinking that we're going to burn the building down.
Yeah, for sure.
So, hey, you guys want to talk about kind of the long term and the short term of how did he help us get to this point?
Yeah, obviously there's two ways to think about it. You have the short term and then the long term.
Yeah.
Like, what do I need them to know now versus where do I want them to be? The short term was a couple of years ago for us, him forming this management team.
You mean the long term?
A couple of years ago, the short term was I need to form this team.
I got it.
It depends on your perspective.
In the meantime, I tried to frame that with 3 years ago. His short term was,
I was following.
We're going to form this now so that in the long term, he'll be able to take sabbaticals, trust us to sail the ship and those things. And so you do have to have a plan.
Yes.
Right? Where do you want to be, say, a year from now? Where do you want to be 2 years from now? And then actually create that plan. Write it out. Think it through. Who could you pour yourself into? Create that plan. And then just start working the steps.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. What are some of the things that he did besides creating the management team in that process to help us get to this point? What are some of the things along the way, Jennifer?
So along the way, he's always equipped all of us to serve in our areas of ministry. Mm-hmm. So he doesn't micromanage. Mm-hmm. Just me thinking back to when I interviewed for this position, I asked him, hey, what is your vision for children's ministry at Heights Church?
That's awesome.
And he said, I want them to become fully devoted followers of Jesus, and I want them to have fun. Mm-hmm. And how I do that is up to me. And I love that. I don't personally want to be micromanaged, so I appreciate that he trusts us to do our jobs. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, he's available to us when we have questions come up and we're not sure how we should handle it. Mm-hmm. And usually those have to do with relationships or some type of conflict or disagreement. Some type of decision, problem solving that has to happen, and we want to know his heart.
Yeah,
and over the years that we've been able to come to him with those situations, we've learned how he'd like us to respond.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
what would Craig do?
Exactly.
Yeah.
What would Craig do? And I know personally for myself, I've valued it so much because I've learned so much about resolving conflict, where I've been able to value the person and value the situation and keep the end goal in mind.
That's great.
So my goal isn't for me to be right and the other person to be wrong. Mm-hmm. My goal is for us to move forward in unity and have a resolution, keeping the relationship in mind and still moving the mission forward. And so he's brilliant at that. And it's been such a gift to be able to serve with him and learn that from him.
That's great. One of the things that I love that you said is during your interview, he said this to you. He said, when you asked the question, what do you want from kids ministry? What did he literally said our mission statement.
Exactly.
Like that is such an ingrained part of it is I want you to make fully devoted followers of Jesus.
As much
kids.
as they're developmentally able to at this age, but that's what he's meaning.
Right. Tim, we have a thing that we use around here. What do we call it?
Game plan.
We've done episodes on this before in the past. If you're curious, go back and watch those episodes on our game plan. But that is, that stuff's on there, right?
Yeah, it's who we are. And during my interview process, he brought that out, and I appreciated it so much because I knew what we're about. I wanted to be about a church that's missional, and that's what we're about. We're about moving the mission forward, but we value people.
Yeah.
And so all of those things are listed. And when we have this tool that we follow, when any situation comes up, we know that we want to hit these things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Tim, you got any other thoughts about that?
Yeah. Along the way, we were in this process from going to forming your team, the people you're going to trust, who you're going to pour your life into, to the long term, what your goal is. A couple of things come to mind. One, some leads may think, I don't even know. I don't even know where to start, right?
Yeah.
And so the question, then I would say, well, then ask your staff. Okay, talk to your staff a little bit about that.
Okay.
But at the same time, what Craig has done in this process to get us to where we are now, he began to entrust us with more responsibilities.
Yes.
He gave us the ability to have more authority to make decisions, from our budget to hiring to
Yes.
a lot of different things. He basically started putting things in our court that some leaders, we use the word micromanage, sometimes like to have control of, but he knew to have a healthy staff, he had to start entrusting others with these things. And so the process was learning these things, walking with him through these things together as a staff, not just individually, but also as a staff, as a management team, so that we could learn his heart. We got to see the way that he made decisions and things like that. And so he started to create, he was coaching in a sense, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And he was just creating this healthy culture to where we were safe to ask for clarity.
Yes.
We were safe to share ideas, those kind of things. That all comes through a process, right? And so that gets us to the point where Jennifer was sharing her stories, like she knew what to do. She's already been through this process, so that when we get to today where we are, sailing this ship while he's on sabbatical, we're just doing what we've always done.
Yeah.
And that allows him then to have this retreat,
right,
to refresh and to recharge, and he there's no worries.
Yeah,
there's no worries. So
absolutely. Well, and I think you guys have touched on this, and you've kind of danced around it. It's one of the things that we find with him is that we have an open door type policy.
Yeah. Yes.
Do you want to chat about that a little bit, because it's a little different in that you can just come see me anytime you want. Go for it. Tell us about it.
So Pastor Craig has always had an open door policy with us, but it's with boundaries. So we know that that he has time set aside for studying, and all of us want to guard that.
Oh, yeah.
We want to respect his time. We're not going to bother him with silly questions. I know for myself, if there's something I know I need to run by him, or maybe not to necessarily get what he'd like me to do, but just to make him aware of it so
Yes.
he's not surprised.
Yeah.
He has a thing where he doesn't want to be surprised.
I don't want to be surprised about anything. Yeah.
And if there is a conflict, I want him to hear it from me first.
Yeah.
Before he hears it from someone else. But I'll just send him a text and I'll wait for him to get back to me. And then if it's something that we need to talk through, he'll spend the time to talk through that situation with me. And I really value that because it does take a lot of extra time from him.
Right, no doubt. And it's not that micromanaging piece. It's really
not. No. It's about problem solving.
Right.
And he'll always ask me, hey, what do you think?
Which is wild, right? Instead of like, let me tell you what my thoughts are on this issue.
He respects us. Yeah. And that's what I value so much about Pastor Craig is he's a humble leader. He's a brilliant leader. I think we can all say that. Yeah. But he values us. And so we feel respected. And by him valuing us and respecting us, that gives us more confidence in ourselves to lead in his absence.
Yeah.
I think that's a big part of it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
When it takes us to the next thought process, he doesn't just value us, he values relationships as a whole.
He does.
And so it's the idea of, I don't want you just to solve the problem. I want you to value the person that's involved, because let's be real. 90% of our problems are usually not things. They're usually conflicts with people or some personality rub.
People are connected to
Absolutely.
those things.
Right.
Yes.
And so, so we're dealing with people all the time. And so, his desire is, let's build bridges and not burn them down if we can. Because honestly, sometimes we have to say hard things.
Right. Yeah.
But there's a way to say it.
Right.
And he's taught me how to do that. And I value that so much, because there's just a wisdom of coming into a conversation and with the goal in mind.
Yes.
Here's the other thing too. When you set aside time as a senior lead to pour into your staff, which he clearly has done on an individual level and at the level of management team, and even as a whole, like
a collective level.
Yes.
In a group
Collective
setting.
level. There's some huge benefits that we're seeing as a church, but not only as a church, but as a staff, right? So one, when he's getting to know the staff member. So as a lead pastor, if you're making decisions in isolation and you're not including them in the process, you're really not ever going to get to know who that staff member is. So when he asks that magic question, well, tell me what you think, he's hearing the heart and the mind and the process of that staff member. So he's getting to know you. And then he'll say, here's what I think. You're getting to know him. And so there's this huge relational benefit. But then there's also a huge organizational benefit on how to run this company, because there have been times where he's learned from, like, say, my response. And there's a lot of times when he'll say, man, I like this, so let's take a little bit of this and let's take this part of what I'm thinking, and then we just be able to move forward together. So there's that idea of getting to know one another. And I don't know about you, but what gets us to this place is that process, because we hear his heart. So when he's getting to know us, we are also getting to know them. And so that's really an encouragement I would love to say to some of the senior leads, is that when you give your opportunity for your staff to speak into something, hey, I want your opinion, tell me what you think. You're getting to know them, which is crucial. And then when you share, they're getting to know who you are.
Yeah.
And that's important. That allows us at this moment to be able to do these kind of things, right?
Yeah. And I think what we've been describing here is this is the equipping process.
Yeah.
Yes.
So this is how you create a team that you can set up to lead when you step out for a few weeks.
Well, and I mean,
and you can trust that things are going to go well.
Well, and even this is his baby. Like, this podcast was his brainchild and his.
It is.
And so what are we doing?
Yeah.
Hijacking it. Kidding. We're just,
but
we're
the fact
stepping.
that he trusted us to do it.
And said, oh my gosh, that'd be a great idea. I love that idea, and encouraged us to do it. I love that that's his heart for us. It's really the difference between, it's not just leadership, it's shepherding, because he's helping make sure that we're healthy, that we're leading from a healthy place, that we're walking through this stuff. He empowered us to think kind of the way he thinks, but really enabled us to lead the way we lead.
Be a part of the process.
Within the lanes of who we are as a church and what our culture is and who our hearts are. In fact, we've got some in real time examples of things that we've had to do without Pastor Craig in the building.
Right.
Yeah.
And so let's share those. Tim, you've got one. You had to make some decisions.
Yeah. So just, man, you talk about real time. The decision happened today before we started filming. The reality is we've been working on some projects, and it came to be where we were going to need to spend a significant amount of money for a project. And usually it is one of our written policies. We all know this is not secret, that anything over $500, we run up the flagpole. We get the appropriate and proper signatures, and then, but we let Craig know, like, hey, this is going to be this. We meet with the account. Yeah, there's other process. We just don't go willy nilly, right? Right. Well, this is a significant amount of money we need to do to continue on a project. That is an expectation, but because we've all worked together, and he's spent the time as a management team getting us to work together cohesively as a team, right? That I was able to, one, go to the accountant, get a clear view of where we're at. Two, then go to the management team, have this discussion about this purchase, and we all were in agreement. This needs to happen. We're in a good place. Let's pull the trigger.
Makes sense.
So yeah, it was my decision to make. But in reality, it was my decision to bring to the team
Right.
Exactly.
to get clarity and we all realize that this project is important.
Right.
Even though, say, it wasn't in your department or something,
No,
but
yeah,
this
no.
project is important.
Absolutely.
So we were able to make that decision, and I'm confident, like, it's not even a blip on the radar.
Yeah, that WWCD, what would Craig do? This is a no-brainer. He'd go, absolutely, we
Yeah,
should do that.
makes
That makes
sense.
sense. It's frugal, it's wise, it's
Right.
all of these, it checks those boxes for
Yeah.
you. So, Pastor Jennifer, I know you have one as well, and this is a person one, isn't it?
It is a person one.
Yeah, come on, talk to us.
So recently I received an email where a parent was upset with our safety policy and how it was administered. And it was a sharp email.
Okay.
I'll just say that.
Yeah.
It was a bit sharp.
Spicy.
It was spicy. And because I'd walked through these situations with Pastor Craig in the past, I knew how he'd like me to respond to it.
Yeah.
So I addressed the person. I made sure that they felt heard. I expressed that I was so sorry this person felt that way. And just addressed each and every one of their concerns. And then I explained the reason behind our safety policy to help the person to be able to come around and see that there's some good reasons for this. And the reasons are our heart is to keep each child safe and make sure that each child goes home with the right parent.
Right.
And in this day and age, so important. Kids ministry has to be safe. Number one, has to be our first priority all the time.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so I felt confident with it, and I knew that would be his heart. I knew that he'd feel great about it.
Yeah.
But that's because I'd walked through several of these with him. I
Right.
knew how he wanted me to respond.
Right. Yeah, it's and again, you valued that relationship. You valued that person's emotions. You valued hey, I'm really sorry. We owned our side of the street in that, hey, how can we make this right? But this is why it matters,
Yeah.
So the one that I have, and this may seem like a silly thing, but I don't think it is, because
No, it's not.
one of Pastor Craig's visions for our church is for it to feel welcoming and inviting. And so one of the ways we do that is we keep the doors open on most normal days.
Yeah.
However, in California, if you're watching this from another state, it has been 111 degrees for I don't know how many
Very
days
hot.
straight.
Arizona's
very
like that's
dry.
nothing.
It's like, you guys don't even know what you're talking about. But still, it's been hot up here in Sacramento. And what happens with the doors open is that heat just bleeds right into the sanctuary. And unfortunately, you can't, so we made the decision. We talked about it as a team. And we said, hey, what if we close the doors but manned them with people to open the doors for folks? So that's what we did. We said, hey, we're going to do that. In fact, we're going to move our information booth inside because, again, it's so hot. We don't have people standing outside, especially that's where our visitors go. Yeah. So we wanted to create a welcoming, cool, refreshing environment, and that's what we ended up doing. And here's what I know is we're not staying that way. It wasn't an indefinite change. It was a Hail Mary based on, it was a pivot based on the temperature because we want to make sure that people feel welcomed and experience this place for what it is. I mean, we have these greeting teams that are just wonderful. They love people so well. I'm a little biased. I'm not going to lie. I get to lead them and they're awesome. But I do know that for me was, I just felt empowered. And after I ran it by you guys and you're like, oh yeah, that's the management team, it's a no-brainer. Let's do that. We are in this beautiful space to be able to care for our people well. And so, Tim, you had talked to us before this whole meeting, before we started recording, about something about culture that I think really applies to us as a church as well. But it was from your buddy.
Yes.
So tell us the story, because I just want to, and then make the application.
Yeah, sure. I've got a really great friend who started up a financial advising company, and it grew to be a pretty large company. And so we would do lunch every once in a while. We'd take a lunch here and there, and I'd go visit, and I'd come to the office. And I noticed something every time I went into his office. There was this really cool vibe happening. People were full of joy. They were happy doing their jobs. It didn't seem stale. It was alive. And there was just some kind of buzz happening. So I remember one time at one of these lunches, I just asked him, I said, dude, what is going on in your office? Like, explain to me this environment, this culture that you've created, because it's obvious these people want to be there.
Yeah.
And he said, it's simple. I I treat them like family. I pour into them. I care for them. I care for them. I care for their families. I want them to be healthy. I want them to be happy. And he said, so I pour myself in. I treat them really well. And if little Susie has a baseball game at 3:00, then you guess what? Susie's parents are getting off early to go see her game.
That's cool.
And little things like that.
Yeah.
He'd take them on, they were financial organizations, so they had the budget for it. He'd take the whole entire team and their spouses on vacations.
We'd like that.
I know. I know. So
But we understand, but that's the
here's
thing.
what he said.
We get it.
He said, I can hire, I'm just going to use a number. I can hire 20 people to give me X,
Right.
to produce X. Or I can hire 10 people, pour into them, and let them be owners of the organization, meaning I value what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
Treat them well, treat them like family. He goes, and I'll get more than X out of 10 than I would 20, because these people are bought in, they're owners. And he felt free. He would do long trips with his family because he had people in place that were owners, and he trusted his organization to, because one, though he had done the work, like what Craig is doing for us.
Yeah.
And he knew, like, these guys see it the way I see it. And this isn't any longer my baby, it's ours. Yeah. And so he had no problem stepping away, doing things. But it was that care, pouring into that investment. Because when else is a leader, senior leader, going to be able to be seen, be transparent, open their heart, like, be real?
Yeah.
Well, you've got to pour into people. And you've got to be real. And that's the reality, is because you have to get your team there, especially in our context of church. If you're going to leave that church in the hands of another leader, or leaders in our case,
Yeah.
you have to. And so how are we going to know what Craig would do,
Right.
and how Craig would respond if we're not in the process together, and not in isolation?
Yeah.
But I think what you're describing there is the person in the lead position needs to be willing to let go of some of the control.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
100%.
So you have to be willing to do that so that your team learns and has the opportunity to learn and grow while you're still staying connected to them,
Correct.
so that they can grow as a leader and you can get them to that position.
Because it grows their capacity to lead, their ability to lead.
Exactly.
And now things are covered.
And it grows the organization and moves
100%.
it forward. So it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely, it requires humility. It requires the ability to, you've been saying it, the investment in your leaders themselves, the trust, the willingness to get to know them, and then empower them. And honestly, part of that is they may not do it the way you want to do it, or you would have done it. I may be leading life groups differently than Pastor Craig would have when he was doing it. But he's put me in this place so that I can. Yeah.
Yes.
And he trusts the outcome, because the outcome is again, it's helping people become fully devoted followers of Jesus.
Yeah.
It's all those guardrails that we have in place that truly help us to get there. What I love is this, and this is so funny that we talked about this prior to just this podcast. Have we had any major fires?
No.
No.
No. Right.
They've all been.
We're like this. Yeah, we're just business
We're
as
just
usual.
business as usual.
It's been very smooth.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if the work had not been done, Craig had not poured into us, empowered us, given us responsibility, like handed things over to us, and we were kind of where we were, say, 3 years ago, would we consider this business as usual? We may be kind of running around with our hair on fire a little bit. But because we have been through this process, it's business as usual. We know what to do. We know how to handle these things. These things have already been entrusted to us. We're all operating the same way.
Yeah. It might be like he was getting low-key text messages from each of us individually going, hey, oh my gosh, I need help with this. I need
He
help with
wouldn't
that.
have had a break.
Oh, yeah. No, it
There
wouldn't have
wouldn't
been.
have been
good-
sabbatical.
yeah.
We would have had to text him every other day.
So I'm glad we did the work.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm glad he allowed us to do that.
Absolutely. Well, hey, I just want to say thank you too so much for joining me in this podcast.
Thanks for having us.
We're just totally just taking over because it's in the meantime, in real time is
That's
what
right.
it is. Hey, and if you like this episode, do us a favor, hit like, subscribe, and the bell notification so you don't miss an episode of these things, because he's coming back. These things are here to help equip you become better leaders in leading God's people, because you know what that's what it's about. It's helping people become fully devoted followers of Christ. And that's why we do this. So thanks so much for joining us today, and we'll see you next time.